I got to say, listen, we're having this very energetic and oftentimes animated debate within the conservative movement and the Republican Party about what to do and who to blame for last week. And people are getting annoyed at me because I actually keep reminding them that we had quite a few wins, quite a few important wins. Like, oh, Connor, you're naive and you're Pollyanna. And it's like, no, seriously. We had some wins, not the ones that make the headlines on cable news. And by the way, do you notice the media is really loving conservatives pointing their fingers and all the acrimony and recriminations? They love it. So you know what they'll hate? Pointing out who won, pointing out what was good about last week. So let's do that. Ryan Girdusky is the head of the 1776 Project PAC. And you, Ryan, headed up a whole slate of candidates running on school choice and education reform. And that was the red wave, wasn't it?
Yeah, they ran for school board on things like opposing critical race theory, on the idea of parental involvement in education, on the idea of not sexualizing children. And we saw a slew of them win. We saw them win in not even just red areas, like in Fredericksburg County and Carroll County, Maryland. They won big. We won several seats in Maryland. We won very big throughout Florida. There was a lot of wins, and it wasn't just my group. There were other conservatives who ran on the education issues that won in Minnesota.
Yep.
That won a 23-year-old unseated an incumbent and flipped the school board in Bergen County, New Jersey. I mean, we did see wins on the education platform that were very, very, very important, and I think that was an untold story of the Tuesday night's election.
Well, it's untold, by the way, as I just alluded to, because the media doesn't want to tell that story. They don't want to show that parents are outraged, they're upset, and they are focusing now on these micro races that really, frankly, I would argue, affect their children and affect their lives more so than a U.S. senator will.
Absolutely, they will. And you know what? There's elections going on constantly. So any Republican or any conservative or right-leaning independent who looked at the election results and said, damn, we didn't win this one, and feels disheartened. Well, guess what? Illinois and Wisconsin, they have school board elections in April. And then you have Nebraska and Oregon in May. And then you have 29 states throughout the rest of the year. So there's a very large likelihood that there's a school board election in your area coming up, and the opportunity to control your local government, the opportunity, especially when there won't be billions of dollars circulating for these elections, and your voice can really be heard, and there'll be a lower turnout of just very highly informed voters. This is the opportunity to sit there and really get control of education in local elections.
That's right, and in some cases, as you just suggested, it's a difference of 500 votes.
It's even less than that.
Yeah, not even.
Yeah, we do our elections. We spend $20,000 to $30,000 maybe for a school board election, and in some cases there are landslide school board victories. But in other elections, it's 100 votes. We've had elections as small as like 8 votes win elections.
Yeah.
So these matter immensely. They are the biggest impact. Local government matters much more to your day-to-day life than federal government does. It's not sexy politics necessarily, but it's very important politics. And school board members, who knows where they go? They go on from there to run for other higher office, possibly. But they do control your local education. It's very, very important.
There are several members of Congress who began their first election was for school board, absolutely, and then they can move on to the House of Representatives eventually. Up until now, these school board races were almost entirely funded by one organization on one side of the political equation, and that, of course, is the National Teachers Unions. And as soon as you got that teacher's endorsement, and we know the baggage that comes along with it, you were going to win your race. Conservatives now got wise. That's where 1776 Project PAC comes along. And explain to everybody where this came from. This was originally sort of this pushback against the 19 project, right? That the Trump administration started.
Well, no, my organization is nothing to do with the Trump administration. My organization started because my godson was in 4th grade, and his teacher started reading a book called Race Cars about white privilege for children under 10. And then she started insisting how policemen only follow black cars, not white cars, and talk about racial profiling. And I was very annoyed, and I realized how big of a problem this actually was in education. So I created this PAC thinking no one would care, and a lot of people care. But that's exactly right, Larry, what you said before. People have accused me and others like me of politicizing local education. The teachers union have been involved for decades pushing politicalization of education. The right used to be in this fight. In 1949 and 1950, the NEA forbid any registered communist from being a teacher in this country. The right used to for over and over and over again. I think during the school prayer fight in the 70s especially, a lot of conservatives just gave up on public education. I just think that's the wrong opinion to have. 80% of American kids go to public education. This is where they go. You have to fight for them. Because if you don't, luck will control them. That's
so true. And if anybody looks at the history of the formation of public education in America, there was a time when we didn't have public education. In the 19th century, they were having debates about whether the government should be involved in this. But one of the selling points was that not only would we educate children through our tax dollars, but we would teach them to be good, patriotic, American-loving citizens. And now they're literally doing the opposite in our schools.
Yeah, no, that's the point I make all the time, which is that, education is to make sure kids can read, write, and do arithmetic and go become good workers. But it's also because it's a common good. It's because they become good patriots. They want to invest in a public institution. I don't have children, but I spend a lot of money educating other people's children, which I don't mind, so long as they come out loving this country and wanting to invest in it and its future, just like I did. That is the essential reason. Part of the most essential reason we have public education, and we can't let creeps like Randy Weingard govern, how these kids' lives are going to go. It's where we have to push back, and I'm so happy we won 104 school board elections in the last year.
Well, and this whole idea of politicizing public education. If there is an election for school board members, and if elected officials at the governor's level or even at the federal level with the Department of Education, if they're responsible for setting policies, then by definition it is already politicized. All right, there's no getting out of it. The problem is, up until now, it's been unilateral. It's been completely one-sided. If this is truly a politicized entity, our public school education programs here, both voices, both sides, all sides need to have an equal voice.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm hoping to give them. We are a small PAC. We spend a few $1 million a year versus the Army from the teachers union. But you know what? We've made it somewhat of an equal playing field, and we've won, now in a dozen states, and we have a dozen more. Hopefully, we'll compete in 2024, 2023 rather, and we'll give conservatives an equal playing field. So it's exciting.
Ryan, I've been talking about these issues on my Washington, D.C. radio program for 10 years now, and it always strikes me, I will get emails, I'll get direct messages on social media from teachers who thank me. They're listening, they're conservative, and they don't have a voice. They're terrified at the workplace to speak out. Do you get this? Are there a lot of teachers now coming out and actually saying, now's the time to take back our system?
We get teachers who are concerned, because I often say teachers are not the enemy. Most of the time, most of these problematic behaviors come from administrators, and there's no one a teacher hates more than an administrator. But I think that I hear from a lot of teachers. I hear from a lot of parents and grandparents, especially, but a lot of teachers and former teachers who some of them feel like they've been kicked out of the profession because they've just gotten so frustrated with having to do 35 DEI courses, a year and certain protocols, and they lost what they really love, which is teaching a child. Yeah. So I would love administrators to get more of the way in letting teachers teach. I think that's really, really important, and I want parents to be involved in that process as well.
Well, thank you for everything you did this election cycle, and it's just going to get bigger from here. Appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, we're going to change this country, but we change it one school system at a time, one neighborhood at a time, one state at a time. You know how it goes. More to come on O'Connor Tonight.